But children were not allowed to visit us. While we were in prison, you were only allowed to visit, your children were only allowed to visit you when they reached the age of 16. When I was sentenced, my wife was 29. My youngest daughter was 2 years old. The next time I saw her, she was 16. After 14 years, I saw my daughter, my youngest daughter. But my other daughters came a bit earlier. They were older than my younger, but that's how it is, you say. But I must pay tribute to my wife. My wife, she stood up. She was a country girl coming from a village in India, ending up in her adopted home in South Africa, and yet she raised 3 children. She was a married widow, as it were. But she had the guts and the courage to do so.
Walter and I were walking on the courtyard, and Madiba's 60th birthday was approaching. So we thought we should suggest to him that on his birthday he should make a political statement, which we'll smuggle out beforehand. That didn't happen. But then we thought we should approach him to write his biography. And that was a long process. It was agreed on. And the procedure was he would write whatever he could. Madiba's writing was very symmetrical. Walter couldn't read it because he wrote and Walter had to add or anything. So Walter couldn't read. I was more used to Madiba's writing. So I could read it to Walter and then take down his comments, which I would pass on to Mac.
Kathy was the head of the communications committee. Mac and I were members of the communications committee because in an institution like prison, it is absolutely essential to keep in contact with your other prisoners from whom we were isolated, as well as keep in contact with the outside world. And we found ways or means, there were various ways in which we did that. So the 3 of us, with him at the head, he was the one who ran the whole project. And Mac and I then transcribed what was supposed to be done. Now what actually happens is, we must be honest here, in Madiba's Long Walk to Freedom, he's made a mistake. And he says Isu had transcribed the whole thing. What he forgot was it was Mac who did about 80% or 85% of the work. I only wrote for 15%.
No,
10%. The point is that Mac did the work. Of course, it was a joint effort, it was a collective effort between the 3 of us, Cassie, Mac and myself, but we managed to do that. And then by that time, we were also classified as A group prisoners. And as A group prisoners, we were entitled to purchase certain things, like cocoa, tea, sugar, coffee, things like that. And then what we did, the original manuscripts, we sealed in the cocoa tins and buried in the garden. That's where the garden came in.
This is after it was transcribed.
After it was transcribed. And the arrangement was that as soon as Mac reached the outside world and the copy of the transcriptions reached Lusaka or London, then he would send a message to Kathy, a pre-arranged message, that everything is safe. Upon receiving that message, we were supposed to have dig those things up and destroy them. But we were too well, we were
Secure.
complacent, we were a bit lazy. Complacent, and we didn't do that. And then one day, the authorities came and they started digging there because they wanted to segregate us even further, and they built a wall. Now when they dug the whole thing, they found, we retrieved a few of the containers, but they also received a few containers. They managed to retrieve a few containers.
No, I think I want to correct you there. I don't know, I can't say I'm right or you're right.
I'm telling you that we
No,
retrieved.
well, you know you're a dictator, you'll always say you are right.
I don't say that. No, I don't say that.
The wall was coming towards the garden. And before it reached the garden, we thought we should retrieve what was buried there, which we did.
No, we
So
certainly
that was
did.
never caught. That we destroyed. Because it had been transcribed already, so there was no point in.
It was just the cocoa tins.
Yeah, there was no point in keeping the original. So that we destroyed that.
Well, I'll say to you, okay, maybe you are right, but my memory serves me correctly. The authorities did get one or two plastic containers. The rest of the
They
plastic
would have
containers,
taken away Mandela's studies if they had caught that thing.
but Mandela did do his studies.
Not because of that. He may have, he lost studies for different reasons.
And I also lost because of you.
Yeah.
I also lost my studies. I lost my studies too because of you.
I went to jail because of you.
The manuscript was correct. There was nothing wrong with that. You see, we did two manuscripts. The one was A Long Walk to Freedom, which the manuscript from which came The Long Walk to Freedom. That was the one set. There, I believe that Mac actually did the album. Of course, I helped him, but he was the main chap who did the album, and we slit it inside. That was the one part.
No, but that album,
But wait a minute. Now, that was where you are making a mistake, that I am the one who did that. In my opinion, it was Mac who did that, I know that. The one that he's talking about is a different thing. We also decided to do a manuscript on the life and times of Walter Sisulu. Right. And Eleanor actually published a book. I was then asked to, it was decided that just as Madiba's autobiography was written, the same should be done for Walter Sisulu. But because he can't write, you can't read his writing at all. Mike Dingake and myself were then approached. Mike, by that time when Mac left, Mike was on the communications committee. So they said what we should do is to interview Walter Sisulu on a daily basis. By that time we had stopped working at the quarry, so we were in prison all the time. So Mike and I used to interview Walter, and we used to make notes. Those notes were then transcribed by myself because Mac had gone already. Then I had to make an album. I had to conceal it. So I produced an art lever file and I produced an album. Made 2 sets of that manuscript.
apart from what we buried there, being Indians, we have to have chilies. How do we get chilies? So there was an Indian priest who used to come and we asked him, please bring us chili seeds, which he did. Again, this chap, he had to measure the chili. On the 3rd of September, the chili was 2 centimeters. He puts a little label on there. And eventually the chili matures, and then we have to preserve that chili. So somebody goes to the prison hospital, gets permission from the doctor for olive oil. I don't know why the doctor agreed to that, or we smuggled olive oil.
No, we went to the doctor.
Yeah, and they put the chilies in there so that...
We preserved our chilies in bottles.
So it was all worth it.
Worth it, of course it was worth it. It's certainly worth it. You know, I went to prison as a very angry young man. I was angry because the security forces of the regime had tortured, assassinated, harassed our people. And I was very bitter about it. Now, when I was arrested on the 6th of July, the person who was also arrested with me, Paul Joseph McMaharaj, Amin Kaji, and Babla Saluji was also arrested. And they killed Babla Saluji on the 9th of September 1964. We were arrested on the same day. And you know, it leaves you with a bitter, angry feeling. So when I was sentenced, and I ended up in Robben Island, then of course I had expressed my views that if ever I'll be able to see my 18 years through, and I live long enough, and I come out alive of prison, I'd sort some of these people out. You know, some of these people. I think I mentioned that to Kathy. Kathy, I think, goes and reports it to Madiba, you see. So one day...
Tell Madiba that this James already planning what he's going to do.
So what actually Madiba then calls me one day. And we sit and talk, you see. And Madiba says, you know, our struggle is a long struggle. We don't know whether we will see freedom or not. But ours is a noble cause, it's a just cause. And if we do see freedom, it'll be a long battle, be a tough battle, it'll be hard work. A lot of sacrifices will have to be made. And even if we don't see freedom in our lifetimes, at least we can have the knowledge, take comfort in the knowledge that our children and our grandchildren will see freedom in their lifetimes. And that will be a source of comfort for us, you see. But should we live that long, and should we live that long and we come out of prison, what should we do? What is our historic mission? And he says our historic mission is to reshape and rebuild this country. That's our historic mission. And then he goes on to say that you can't reshape and rebuild that country on your bitterness, your anger, and your feelings of revenge. He tells me that. So I said, I have to think about it. And he says the only way to do it is to forgive and reconcile a divided nation. And you can't do that on feelings of bitterness and anger. Forgiveness, we will never forget what they did to us. But we'll have to forgive and we'll have to reconcile. And that became his philosophy. Forgiveness and reconciliation. And when he became president, the first 5 years, that was the only 5 years he served, first 5 years, there were a lot of good things that happened, but one of the important things was the question of forgiveness and reconciliation. I never forgot that.
Well,